wanna rub and love up. I wanna rub and kiss up. I wanna rub and jam up. I wanna rub and rub up. I wanna rub my body on your body.
Rub my body on your body.
Let me rub my body.
Your body.
I just get paid. I want to play. The vibes is right. I wanna hug up tight. No time to waste. I wanna work my waist. So come on, babes. Give me a taste. I wanna rub my body on your body.
I wanna rub my body on your body.
Let me rub my body on your body.
I wanna rub my body on your body.
I wanna rub and love up. I wanna rub and kiss up. I wanna rub and jam up. I wanna rub and rub up. I wanna rub my body on your body.
I wanna rub my body on your body.
Let me rub my body on your body.
I wanna rub my body on your body.
Well, you know, I'm feeling, 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 I'm feeling. Smoke in my brain. I wanna do my thing. Work up a sweat until I soak in wet. Rub your body, show no mercy. Because I'm feeling tipsy, I'm feeling freaky. I wanna rub my body on your body.
I wanna rub my body on your body.
Let me rub my body on your body.
I wanna rub my body on your body.
I wanna rub and love up. I wanna rub and kiss up. I wanna rub and jam up. I wanna rub and rub up. I wanna rub my body on your body.
I wanna rub my body on your body.
Let me rub my body on your body.
I wanna rub my body on your body.
Hello, this is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.
If you are looking to have your statutory declaration, affidavit of income, identity, damage or lost passport, lost license, tenancy agreement, agreement of settlement, power of attorney, last will and testament, and certification of documents, then you need to visit the Alistair Collins firm, located at the Killian Mall, 162 Lamaha Street in Georgetown, between Camp and Waterloo Street. Alistair Collins is a commissioner of oaths and a justice of the peace. Make certain you visit him or call for more information at 649-6410 or 685-6448 or 503-1451. And there's adequate parking available. Go down to the Alistair Collins firm and have all of your legal issues settled and brought to the fore. Alistair Collins firm. Contact them at Alistair Collins firm.
Well, good evening. My name is Mark Benchop. It's 7 minutes after 9 o'clock in beautiful Guyana, beautiful Georgetown, Guyana. And what is it? Where are we going to start off? I know the time is different in other parts of the world. We know in China, it's different. In England, it's different. Good evening to the folks in London there. Good evening to all of you, the folks out in Europe, wherever you're listening to us, but especially the folks out in Blackbush Polder. Good evening to all of you. I know you are all excited, right? And I really do mean that. You're excited to see what I look like this evening. My facial expression and all these different things. All right. You're going to get to see my face. We just had a brief meeting with Lemon. And as you know, Lemon has been misbehaving again. Lemon was off the job on Friday, even though we gave him whatever it is, his bonus and all these different things. And we're not too happy with Lemon, right? I know there are lots of things you want us to get into. We are going to get into that, but share the link and let's rock and roll on some very, very serious issues, very serious matters happening in Guyana and maybe other parts of the world. But you know, we focus on Guyana, all right? We focus on Guyana. Good evening to all of you. I don't know, what are you guys having for the holiday season? What exactly are you guys doing? Here we go. There it is. You get to see my facial expression, all right? On this beautiful Monday evening. We got to talk. I want to talk to you, but I just don't want to talk to you as yet. I want to be political with you. You know we're political on this show, right? But I also want to be straight up with you. And sometimes when you are straight up, some people love you, some people don't like you, and then some people want to hunt you down, right? But I'm not too bothered about those who want to hunt me down just for being straight up. Again, good evening to all you beautiful folks, especially the folks who are watching us right now from Congress Place. Good evening to all of you. There has been a tie, not this kind of tie. I think 381 votes for Vince Roy Jordan. That's the young man from region number 5. He's a member of parliament. And he got fired from GWI. He was one of those workers there at GWI. Then he was on the list. Then he became a member of parliament, a young member of parliament. He decided to throw his hat in the race to run for one of the two spots they get as vice chair of the People's National Congress Reform. I know a lot of you are happy this evening. Yep, the listeners, the viewers, those who commented. I know you guys are happy. And you have every right to be happy. Don't get me wrong. In fact, we all should be happy. And in any election, in any elections, as long as the democratic process is followed. Well, GCOM never did that. That is why those who are in the opposition are in the opposition today, because that democratic process wasn't followed. But based on what we're hearing coming out of Congress Place, the democratic process was, to some extent, I don't know anything contrary, but I can say that it was followed. But no part of the world, even in the good United States of America, there's always some degree of questions about the democratic process. But what I can say is, for the most part, good news came out in terms of the democratic process. Good news came out of Congress Place. And so I want to take this opportunity to congratulate those who have been elected to serve their party, the People's National Congress Reform. Aubrey Norton. Aubrey Compton Norton. Good evening to you, Aubrey. But now I know those of you who are members of the People's National Congress Reform will no longer be addressing Aubrey as Aubrey Compton or whatever. It will be Comrade Leader. I'm laughing because for me, this Comrade Leader stuff reminds me of Kim Jong-un and Kim Il-sung and the other son that died, right? Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il, and now Jong-un, I don't know. Comrade Leader. Well, that is part of the party's constitution, this comrade thing. I don't know. We're going to get into that. But congratulations to Aubrey Norton. I'll speak a little bit about that. Congratulations to the others. And congratulations to those who participated. The strong ones, for the most part, didn't seem to have been elected. It's not to say that some of those who have been elected aren't strong. Lemon, good evening. Yeah, quickly. Welcome back to work. Welcome. What's going on? You disappeared on us on Friday. Explain quickly before we get into our program.
Mark, well, I just took some time off because I wasn't feeling too good. So I'm absent from my job back because I see you advertising Orange, and I need my job. And it's Christmas coming up, I have to feed my kids. I'm acting for our next raise, if you know.
So you weren't at work on Friday. I assume that you're happy now that because one of the other operators actually snitched on you, say that you all along you have been supporting Aubrey Norton. What is your take on that, Lemon?
Yes, I'm congratulating Mr. Norton on his victory, and I know you were leading to Mr. Norton's side, but you don't want to say. You say it to me, but tell the audience what you think about that.
All right. Before we get into that, let us quickly say, what is your take on that? Are you prepared to put boots on the ground? Are you putting boots? Are you going to wear boots? Because now it's time to confront Jadil. Are you prepared for that?
Yes, because I think Mr. Norton is a strong leader, and yes, we will put boots on the ground. We will.
All right. Anything else you wish to say before we get to work?
I'm just, want my job back.
You got your job. You're on the job, Lemon. What else do you want? You got a raise the other day. You got your bonus the other day. What more do you want?
Mark, I just want to congratulate Mr. Norton.
You said that already, Lemon.
Yeah, but I just want to congratulate him again, for his victory. And if you need someone to advise him, you can hire me.
Oh, Father Jehovah. Lemon, thank you so much. Let's get to work, man. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else before you go? You say a lot of people appreciate the fact that you're on. They say that you already got a raise. Why you want more raise? Come on, Lemon. Don't be ridiculous.
It's a Christmas, and I need a next raise. I'm doing an excellent job.
All right. Well, we think you should go into Congress Place and ask Comrade Leader Aubrey Norton for some sort of position, a job, a raise or something. We're getting fed up with you and you being absent. You are always asking for a raise. We're getting fed up of this, man. I'm beginning to suspect that you're a spy with us here.
We will try to get Mr. Norton on the program and, talk about that.
All right. Good. Thank you so much, Lemon. Appreciate your work. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Somebody says Lemon is ungrateful. In fact, he's bordering that because something is wrong with our guy, man. Something is wrong with Lemon. What's going on with you guys? Now back to Aubrey Norton. Aubrey Compton Norton is now the new leader of the People's National Congress Reform. And again, I want to take this opportunity on behalf of all of us here at 107.1 FM to congratulate the new leader of the People's National Congress Reform. And we're not seeing the photograph that Lemon should have up of Aubrey Compton Norton, the new leader of the People's National Congress Reform. So we are going to substitute it for this. Aubrey, what can we say? Let me see some of your comments about this. You would have gotten the news already since Saturday. Some of you got the news since last month. Right? Some of you operated as though you were right there in the midst of things since last month, and you got these results already. Let me see here. There's a Kenneth DeFlorma is saying, Mark, now that it's all over, you tell us who you were rooting for in Congress. Oh, look, the truth is I wasn't rooting for anyone. And that's the truth. And if I were, I would have been saying it straight up. But I wasn't rooting for anybody. But this brings me to the point. Now, and you guys know that if I was actually rooting for someone, I would have been the first to say it. But I wasn't rooting for anyone. Now that Aubrey Norton has been elected, not selected, elected the new leader of the People's National Congress Reform, I want to make this point quite clear for all of you, every single one of you, on my take on Aubrey Norton as the new leader. And this is just my opinion. The people have voted. Out of 3,000 plus delegates, Vinetta Seymour, I don't want you to speak on my behalf and to tell me who I was rooting for. I please don't let's go that route at all. I've made my point very clear. Do not let's go that route, Vinetta Seymour. Good, thank you. Now, let me say this, and good evening to Afraz Osman, a staunch supporter of Aubrey Norton. Good evening to Osman. And now let's talk some serious business here now. Carl Miller is saying 12,000 voted. 12,000? Where did you get that figure from, Carl Miller? 12,000? Just over 3,000 voted. Over 3,000 delegates, and just a little over 1,000 voted. A little over 1,000 voted. That's just under 50% voted. Thank you, Sherwin Green. Right? Just under, or just about a little over 1,100 participated. Rachel Glasgow, thank you. And so Carl Miller, I don't know where you got that. What is it, 12,000? Or was that just an error there? I don't know where you got that 12,000. But just under, or just a little over 12,000, sorry, just a little over 1,100 voted. And that's under 50% persons went out and they voted. And they voted overwhelmingly for their new leader of the People's National Congress Reform, Aubrey Compton Norton. Aubrey Compton Norton. Somebody is saying to me that the voters' turnout was higher. I'm not sure how much higher, but if it's 3,000 and just a little over 1,100 voted, it simply means that it was under 50%. Nevertheless, the People's National Congress, the supporters, not just supporters, the bona fide members of the party, voted for Aubrey Norton to be the next leader of the People's National Congress Reform. With that said, here's my take on that particular issue. The take on that is that I do believe that regardless of my personal views, the people have spoken, and Aubrey Norton is now the leader of the People's National Congress Reform. Now, I'm not a member of the People's National Congress Reform, and so I commend those delegates who went out and they voted for their next leader. Now, what's the next step? The next step is Aubrey Norton should, and from my standpoint, Aubrey Norton should be given an opportunity to breathe. In other words, he should be given a breathing space, like all or most elected officials, not selected or installed officials. But Aubrey Norton should be given a chance to prove himself. I'm not saying he should be given a year or 2 years to prove himself. He can turn things around. He can turn things around within 6 months. Things can turn around within 6 months. And so on my show, it doesn't mean that there wouldn't be constructive criticisms if I see things going in a direction that, in my opinion, it should not. But for the most part, Aubrey Norton ought to be given a chance to catch himself, to breathe, and to execute his plans. Now, Aubrey Norton cannot execute his plans when folks like myself will start going after him right away. No, it's not going to happen by me. I'm not bothered about who else want to go after him right away. But the elections are over. People have voted. They have a new leader. They have a chairman. They have 2 vice chairpersons. I spoke with Christopher Jones. I congratulated them. And for the tie, Christopher Jones and Vince Roy Jordan, I suggested to Christopher Jones that they should split the seat, meaning the time that is, let them split that time. Don't toss a coin up or whatever. Christopher Jones should take the first half or whatever, and the other guy should take the second half. That's just my take on that. And so don't expect any anti-Norton sentiment coming from this show. Like I've said, he should be given that breathing space, and I am prepared to give him that breathing space as I have done to others in the past. And so we here at 107.1 FM, again, we wish Mr. Aubrey Norton the very best. And now, with all of the promises made, if in fact he can turn things around, if he can turn things around and fulfill all of the promises or most of the promises made, then I think we are on the right track. Oftentimes, politicians on the campaign trail will talk a good talk, but delivery is oftentimes difficult. And we have seen this in politicians. I don't know whether Aubrey Norton can deliver. He has never been in any sort of high political leadership. I know that, and we all know that he was advisor to President Granger, David Arthur Granger, youth empowerment. I don't know his scorecard on that, but he was advisor. Outside of that, he was general secretary back in 1997 and so forth. But now he is leader of the party. He is leader of the party. I notice our listener, Ian Williams, is saying that the PPP camp is trembling. I don't know why the PPP camp is trembling, right? But I'm not going to be so bold to say that they're trembling. But what I can say is that Jack Dale and his cabal, they do not like this sort of forceful confrontation. And what people are expecting from Aubrey Norton is that forceful. What we have seen over the past weeks on the campaign is the sound bites coming from Aubrey Norton. Good sound bites to many, mind you. A sound bite of wanting to confront the PPP, the ills of the PPP, not just street protest, but confrontation. Now, I say confrontation because people want issues to be addressed. Aubrey has promised to have these issues addressed. And that is why I'm saying that to talk on the political campaign trail and executing these talks, making these talks become reality, oftentimes it's not an easy task. But let us hope that Aubrey Norton is able to get these things executed that he has promised the supporters of the People's National Congress reform. So with that said, we give him, and I will give him, some breathing space. Right? I will give him some breathing space. Now we see that there's a Kwan and flood scam. Now let's address this. Kanukan Dagurandi is talking about, or we have to address the flood scam in Berbice. Fair enough. The flood scam all over the not just the flood scam, but the COVID-19 grant scam, the oil scam, the housing scam. All these scams, lots of scams. I don't know how many scams you'll be able to address. Guy Suko scam, Guy Oil scam. I don't know. Every day is a scam. Every single day is a scam. Now, Aubrey can't do it all by himself. And he has to have a competent team, a very competent team. Now, I don't know. I can't pronounce on how competent his team is, his chairman, his vice chair. I just can't comment on that. But we can only hope that they are competent enough, because oftentimes you may have a good leader, someone with good qualities to run a country or to run a party. But if you're surrounded with square pegs, or lots of square pegs or incompetent individuals, then it's difficult to have your task or your mandate executed. And now I'm not saying that Aubrey Norton is surrounded by incompetent individuals or square pegs. I'm not saying that, because I don't know most of those individuals, mind you. But speaking of those sort of incompetent individuals, it's a pity that my friend, President David Arthur Granger, had some very incompetent people around him. And it's a pity he didn't organize and change that system. I don't know. Now, where this Tara Poole come from? Mark, stop being a hater. You see, that's the problem with individuals. They don't like to sit and listen and to be constructive in a discourse. They just don't. They're just bent on one thing. God in heaven knows what that one thing they want to hear. What is that one thing they want to hear? Look at Tara Poole. Right. Look at Tara Poole. Where in my discourse thus far that there's any evidence to suggest that I'm being a hater? You see, and these things are strong terms, especially if you don't listen carefully to understand what is being said. And look at this comment from a Tara Poole, and Poole with a P and not an F, mind you. Tara Poole. Mark, stop being a hater. See, that's the problem with some of our folks. That's the problem. They don't listen carefully. They don't try to be constructive. They just bent on hearing one thing. Look at this. I mean, it's okay. I get worse criticism than that, or silly comments. It's okay. You guys some of you are entitled to that. But look at this. Mark, stop being a hater. You could tell this is this other person, Adin Clark. You could tell it's some fake individuals. Norton is the best. Stop crying. Again, do they listen? Who is this person? Don't tell me this person is blogging out of Congress Place. I hate to think that. Norton is the best. Stop crying. These folks are, well, I guess they just don't understand. They just don't want to listen to have a proper discussion. I guess they want people to come on and hug up Norton and kiss up Norton and talk all these things about Norton. Oh, Norton won. Things gonna be nice. Good night. Have a blessed rest of the night. I'm gone. I'm out of here. They want to hear that, you know. And I agree with Renee McKenzie Talbot. Renee, good evening and belated birthday greetings to your husband. Good evening to him as well. Happy 75th birthday anniversary to your husband. But Renee, you're correct. Comprehension is hard for some people to understand, hard for some people to understand, indeed. You know, so foolish individuals who are just bent on, you know what, a one-track mentality. We have absolutely no space for them, none whatsoever. And so we will continue with our discourse. Now, Mr. Aubrey Norton, Comrade Leader, has said some things, and I think, you know, a lot of folks want to hear those things. However, in his approach as to how he is going to deal with the issue of the opposition leader, Mr. Harman, his former boss, I think that ought to be approached in a very professional, respectable manner and should not be done by firing shots in public or embarrassing shots in public to make it appear that this is a ring-down fight, political fight down. Because in the end, ring-down political fight down, will get the party support base nowhere. And if Mr. Aubrey Norton has his eyes on the seat of the leader of the opposition, it's okay. I'm not saying that's a crime. There should be a better way in approaching that. To sit down, big men, to sit down, including the elders of the party, including the leaders or the leadership of the party, to sit down and discuss the way forward. Simple as that. Because if we get into this turf war and this group war, then it benefits no one. It doesn't benefit Norton's team. It doesn't benefit supporters of the PNCR. It doesn't benefit those people like me who are watching in and offer our support from the outside. It doesn't benefit anyone. And so if Mr. Norton, and I don't disagree with a lot of things that he has said, but he has to be cognizant of the approach in executing some of these things that he has. For example, if you want to be able to have some folks recalled from Parliament, something that you guys have been hearing for a long time right here on 107.1 FM. So these things that Aubrey is now talking about, you guys have been hearing it, but on here and maybe other forums, but he's now the leader of the party. And the question now is, should Mr. Joseph Frederick Harmon remain the leader of the opposition, or should that position be given to Aubrey Norton, who is now the leader of the party? Now, remember the APNU AFC is a coalition opposition, just like they were actually a coalition government. It's now a coalition opposition. And all of the parties involved need to have an input. Not one man, all of the parties need to have an input quietly to arrive at a professional and a respectable decision as to what is best for the party. Bulldozing, political bulldozing is not going to work. It's going to create chaos. Now, I know in the beginning, Aubrey, of his tenure, Aubrey doesn't want chaos because nobody benefits, including Aubrey. He wouldn't benefit from a fight. He wouldn't. If he wants to be successful, then he has to put down this fight, all this stuff. Because in every political fighter, there's always space for negotiation, to take a middle ground and to compromise. If a political leader is not willing to compromise, then you might as well kiss that political leader goodbye. Because in this time and age, one must be able to compromise. And with what is about to happen, my prediction, what is about to happen, I believe that Aubrey Compton Norton has to compromise. It is not going to be his way all the time. It is not going to be. Right? And mind you, this is a constructive criticism. And maybe I need to break it down for, I noticed one and two folks. Break it down to let you guys know that it is constructive. Hence, I'm saying all of the parties involved need to gang up at Congress Place, trash things out privately. However, let me say this. Let me say this straight up. I'm not going to beat around the bush with you guys. Let me say this to you guys straight up. I am of the view that at some point in time, the leader of the opposition, Mr. Joseph Harman, will have to relinquish that position. That's just my opinion, mind you. Whether he does that next week, next month, or by mid next year, or by the end of next year, I do believe that he should relinquish that position. That's just my opinion, mind you, right? Why do I say that? Why do I say that? I say that because leading up to the general elections, if they are going to have the PNCR identify an individual to be the opposition leader, well then, that person, if it happens to be Aubrey Norton, and I don't see Aubrey Norton giving anybody else a chance to be the presidential candidate in the next general and regional elections. So if Aubrey is gearing himself up to be that presidential candidate, then he ought to be given that opportunity to be the opposition leader as well. Again, that is just my opinion. And let him perform. If he cannot perform, then the democratic process is next party Congress, the party members, if he doesn't perform, then the party members have that right to vote him out. As simple as that. It's a democratic process. Vote him out. But let him get that opportunity. However, how Norton goes about this power struggle now between himself and the leader of the opposition will define how he will operate as leader of the People's National Congress reform. Because don't expect Joseph Harman in the air and throw the key to Aubrey Norton, relinquish his power as opposition leader just like that. It is not going to happen. Under no circumstances. And the more Aubrey Norton, I'm not saying he's aggressive on this issue, but the more he makes these things public, the more fight back he is going to get. Because Joseph Harman is not going to put his hands in the air and surrender just like that. It is just not going to happen. Hence my reason for saying that they need to have quickly good dialogue, constructive dialogue behind the doors to arrive at a reasonable conclusion. Now, here what the other problem is. Aubrey Norton is not the leader of the list. Therefore, Aubrey doesn't get to decide who goes into Parliament or who should be recalled. Members of the Central Executive of the People's National Congress reform, they may meet and they may arrive at whatever decisions as to who they want to be recalled or not, or who they may express some sort of no confidence toward. At the end of the day, one man holds the key to that. And that one man happens to be President David Arthur Granger, former leader of the People's National Congress. He is the leader of the list. The deputy leader of the list happens to be Kemraj Ramjatan. So the leader of the list gets to decide who goes into Parliament and who doesn't. The leader of the list gets to decide who should be recalled or who shouldn't. And now the recall process wasn't that easy. In fact, it would have been difficult for people to be recalled just like that. Many years ago, if some of you who were following politics would remember that they had a People's National Congress a People's National Congress member of parliament by the name of Philip Bino. Philip Bino was sitting on the PNC side of the bench. And one day, Philip just decided to get up and cross the floor, walked over and sat on the PPP side of the bench. Now, they didn't have a recall process back then. But if they did, the leader of the opposition, who was then, I believe, forgive me, it could have been Robert Corbyn or Mr. Desmond Hoyt, then Philip Bino would have been recalled. But there was no recall process, so Philip had to sit there on the PPP side of the bench, right? He walked over. He walked over. But then again, the recall process came about, meaning, and the recall process means that if there is someone sitting in parliament and they're not performing well, or they're up to some sort of charandasism, they could be recalled almost immediately, right? And what Mr. Norton is asking or suggesting, should have done that privately, but what Mr. Norton is suggesting, what he's suggesting is that there are some members of parliament who ought to be, recalled. In other words, who ought to be removed from parliament. And Mr. Norton is saying that the central executive members will decide on that. All falls right back in the hands of President David Arthur Granger. Now, it is easy to say, recall these members of parliament, some of them, mind you, recall them. I hope Mr. Norton, though, is not talking or signaling this sort of his intention to recall. And most of those whom he wants or want to recall, would be those who didn't support him. If that is the criteria to recall them, then I don't support that at all. If he's saying that some should be recalled because they're not performing, well then, I have been saying that for a while right here. Recall some of those non-performing members of parliament, those daydreaming members of parliament, right? So I agree with that. But I hope Mr. Norton is not going after those members of parliament who didn't support him, right? I hope not. I'm not saying that is the case that Aubrey is about, but I hope not. Now, I'm trying to break it down for you guys, right? For those of you who may not understand the process. So someone called me and asked that whether Aubrey Norton has the power to recall. I said, no, he doesn't have the power. And the fact that Aubrey Norton is now leader of the People's National Congress reform, by virtue of that, he, Aubrey, being leader of the PNCR, he automatically should be leader of the list. Leader of the list simply means that, again, for those who may not understand that process, at elections time, you have your candidates, a list of candidates. You present your list of candidates to GCOM. So you walk into GCOM, you have this list, and you say to the folks at GCOM, this is my list. We have 50-something persons or 60-something persons on this list, right? The leader of the list could either be the leader of the PNCR, but there's no law that says automatically the leader of the PNCR ought to be the leader of the list. There's no law that says that. Absolutely none. In 2011, the leader of the list was not David Granger. And David Granger was the leader of the opposition. He was the leader of the PNCR. He was the presidential candidate, but he was not the leader of the list. The leader of the list was a former professor, I believe, at the University of Guyana, Mr. Harold Lutchman. Harold Lutchman was the leader of the list, not David Granger. So in answering that person's question as to whether it is something that is automatic, no, it is not automatic. So Aubrey Norton, by becoming leader of the list, leader of the People's National Congress, it doesn't make it automatic for him to be head of the list. Now, what is this list? As I've explained, once you submit your list of candidates, on the top you have who is the presidential candidate, who is the prime ministerial candidate, and all of the list of other candidates. Also, you have to present the name of the leader of the list. Now, the leader of the list, legally, that person gets to decide. That person gets to decide whether Debbie King, and now I say Debbie King because apparently Debbie King is not listening to me carefully. And this is what oftentimes happens when you don't listen. This person is saying, I'm defending Harman. Mark defending Harman. Listen to him carefully. But a few minutes ago, this same Mark that you claim is defending Harman said that I believe that at some point in time, whether tomorrow, whether the next week, whether next month, or mid-next year, Mr. Joseph Frederick Harman will have to decide on going. I think that he should go. So where do these folks arrive at these sort of ridiculous conclusions? That Mark is defending Harman. Listen to him carefully. Are you listening, Debbie? Are you really listening? Good evening to you, Debbie. But are you really listening? And that's the problem we have. That is the problem we have. And people just don't listen. Gosh. Just give me a second, guys. Whew. Mark is defending Harman. And I just said I believe that Mr. Harman should decide on the way forward for him and in terms of going, because they should be space. I believe they should be space for the leader of the opposition, of the PNCR, to get that chance to prove his leadership qualities. And that can only be done if he becomes leader of the opposition. And whether Joseph Harman had won or Van West Charles, my argument would have been the same, that Van West Charles should have been made the leader of the opposition. Now, why should I have a different view because Aubrey Compton Norton is now the leader of the PNCR? Now, I'm just offering my opinion. My opinion. That's all I'm offering. My opinion. How they decide to handle that is another story. But it should be done privately. The discussion and the way forward should be done privately. There should be no cuss down, no pull down publicly, because no one is going to win. Because if you cuss down Harman publicly, he's not going to relinquish his position just like that. But if you talk to him differently, then you never know. Maybe he'll get an understanding and decide to bow out. Now, getting back to the list system, I see you, Sherwin Green. Mr. Vincent Alexander understands the process very well. But a lot of our PNCR members, support base, or even those who follow them, do not understand the process. So like the list system. The list system basically means that Mr. David Arthur Granger, president, is the leader of the list. So he gets to decide who goes in, who goes out, who gets recalled. Let me get back to the recall bill. The recall bill was supported by then opposition leader and then leader of the country, Barra Jack Dave. The two of them sat down, they agreed, and they made that possible to recall an MP. Recall an MP if that MP is not performing. So what's going to have to happen now is a decision will have to be made, and very soon. I don't agree that the leader of the party should not be in parliament. It has always been that way, that the leader of the party is in parliament. And in the case of the PNCR, the leader of the party, the PNCR, in parliament is the opposition leader. Mr. Hoyt, Mr. Corbyn, Mr. David Otter Granger, all three of them were leaders. They were leaders of the People's National Congress reform, right? They were all leaders. Let's check out Mr. Hoyt, his death anniversary. So Mr. Hoyt, when he lost power in 1992, he became the leader of the opposition. He was leader of the PNCR. And so he was leader of the opposition. Right? Good. Now, after Mr. Hoyt's death, the chairman of the party, and wait a minute, the chairman of the party is very important because that person is one step away from becoming leader of that party. One step away. That's why it's important. It's important who sits in that second seat. Now, we all would hope and we want the best for Aubrey Norton in terms of health-wise, so forth. So nobody is predicting anything bad. I just want to break it down for the folks, some of the folks who may have, have a difficult time in understanding. And so the second in command is always important because that person is one step away from becoming leader of the party. And so when Mr. Hoyt was leader of the party, the PNCR, the chairman of that party was this guy, Robert Orlando Corbyn. He was chairman. When Mr. Hoyt died, he became the leader of the party. Mr. Hoyt, when he died, was leader of the party, and he was also opposition leader. He was opposition leader. So what they did in Parliament on the opposition side, when Mr. Hoyt died, the chairman became the leader of the party, and they went back into Parliament and they voted this guy, Robert Orlando Corbyn, as the next opposition leader of Guyana. When this guy was no longer, and I say this guy with all due respect, Robert Corbyn, when he was no longer leader of the PNCR, this guy, oh yeah, a guy who has done a heck of a lot for Guyana. But some of you wouldn't want to admit that. But on another occasion, another night, I will deal with that. But this guy, David Otter Granger, former president, when Mr. Granger became leader of the PNCR, and he was in Parliament, he was made the opposition leader. And so all of these guys functioned as leaders of their party, the PNCR, and they also functioned as opposition leader. Now, after the 2020 elections, that was hijacked by the PPPC under questionable circumstances, that is, right? That's based on the results. If Lowenfield was allowed to do his job, David Arthur Granger would have been the president still of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, and no one would have been cussing him out. No one would have been cussing him out. Now, the question is, Mr. Hoyt wasn't prepared to Granger wasn't prepared to head back into office, to Parliament, and the fact that he was not in Parliament changed this whole dynamics. That he not going into Parliament makes it difficult now. A very complex situation, never seen or heard of before in the PNCR, that a new leader of the opposition had to be appointed. And they might have been shopping around, but they left with Joseph Frederick Harmon to be the leader of the opposition. Right? And so now that this is what complicates matters. And so with that said, I am, again, I repeat, of the view that the party needs to sit down like big men and women and discuss this entire issue as to the way forward. As to the way forward. And the way forward, in my opinion, is that Aubrey Norton, now that he's leader of the party, right? Aubrey Norton, sung like a DJ there for a second, right? Right. Aubrey Norton, now that he's leader of the party, he should. Because this is not like a situation, let us say, Van West Charles was elected leader of the party. Van West Charles could not have become the leader of the opposition because his name is not on the list. And when your name is not on the list, you cannot go in Parliament. But what makes this interesting, though, is I do believe, I'm subjected to some sort of correction, that Aubrey Norton's name is on the list. And what's the next step is that the leader of the list, who happens to be Mr. David Arthur Granger, needs to approve Aubrey Norton on that, extract Aubrey's name and send Aubrey to Parliament. And sending Aubrey to Parliament paves the way for him to become the next opposition leader. And in doing so, it gives Aubrey Norton an opportunity to perform his duties. To perform his duties. That is all. But it is just up for the People's National Congress to decide. Not Mark Benshaw, not Straight Up, and so forth. So we'll see how that goes, though, right? I'm just offering my opinion on the process. Am I expecting a showdown? I hope not. I hope there's no showdown. I sincerely do hope that there is no showdown. I'm looking at some of your comments here now. And we'll see how it goes. But Lemon has just signaled to me that my time is up. It's been a pleasure being with you guys. I will I'll be back with you guys tomorrow, same place, same time. So we'll see how it goes. Aubrey should understand that now that he's the leader of the party, petty differences, people will have their petty differences, and his approach should be that it's like a leader, a true leader. Congratulations again to Aubrey Norton, and congrats to all of you who have participated over the past couple of months in a very democratic way. Some of you robust, some of you very emotional about the process. But in the end, some of you didn't like what I had to say because you were just bent on your one person. But it is the nature of democracy. And so I just want to thank all of you for that patience in ensuring that your party, the People's National Congress Reform, had their Congress held, and a new leader and other party officials were elected. Congrats to that process. Congrats to all of the elected officials. I wish them well, and I wish all of you guys who are members of the PNCR the very best. Have a good night. God bless you, and I will be back tomorrow, same place, same time. But don't forget, tomorrow morning, starting at 9 o'clock Guyana time, we have the mid-morning show with Gabby and DJ Andre, right here on 107.1 FM. See you guys tomorrow. So long.
She put a pot on she hair and gone. Them a the first one out on the dam. Basket on she head, bucket in each hand. Hold up on she frock, I wanna she grandson. To the market, them a go. For the morning, the day is dawning. For cockacrow to give the villagers a warning. Rise and shine, the birds them a sing. All animal take turn as them join in the waking. Cockacrow, dagaba, donkey, bray, horse, and they even duck a quack. Cockacrow, dagaba, donkey, bray, horse, and they even duck a quack. Come and hear this sweet story that tell the people about life in the country. All day a back down, me now a come home. Inaga jackass yard for fetch the load. Cockle shy hand, bag over shoulder, running by his side. A Rexy and Rover from the farm, them a come. Sun a go down but up the river. Some washing clothes, some folks are bathing at the water. Fisherman, they catch them a bring. From a canoe boat, man, them start offloading. Aymara, Kwakwari, Hail Baka Kuma Kuma, even Lokonani. Aymara, Kwakwari, Hail Baka Kuma Kuma, even Bangameri. Listen to this sweet story that tell the people about life in the country. Them children glad when the weekend come. Out in the yard, them all gather round. Some a play catcher, some making house from straw. Two who come later, a grandma or grandpa. All a sit down just a wait. Moonlight so bright, it's just the right time to listen story or to say a little nursery rhyme. Grandpa voice a echo in the night as he tell the tale. Some picnic are there with fright. Oh, Ligan, Mungeza, Massa Kurma, Bura, Nancy, even Watamuma.
Olaigan, moon gazer, massa kurman, boranasi, even watamuma. Yeah, man, that's the true story that tell the people about life in the country, life in the country.